Morning. Yes. Okay, we're going to start today on 63. 63 by it's 5 lines from the top. I think Hashem that's able to learn Torah every day. In the source of our learning, we should have the base of English.
For me,
Immediately we're learning. Who's a special yard site?
My grandfather Dov Zev,
Ben
Reb Yechiel HaKohen.
Eitan ben Yisrael Zera.
Eitan Ben
Yisrael Zera.
Yisrael Zarach. Zarach or Zarach?
Oh.
I guess Zarach. Okay, and also for Nishmas Savigol the Basra Daf and Shalom Ben Benzin, and also for Shleimer and Dai gets all has been figured separate. Okay.
Bring back more hostages.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
To bring back the hostages.
Right.
Father the hostage.
Jeff is here.
Father hostage.
Okay. The Gemara says, Shita, following is obvious. Amar Yachlik Pliny Benachasai. Person says, we're talking about a person on his deathbed giving instructions what to do with his property. So, as he says, that so-and-so should split my property. He's giving a portion to so-and-so. Now, when he says split, Yachlik could mean to divide it in half, and it could mean to give a chelak, give a portion. It doesn't have to be half. It's not so clear what he means. So it says, Yachlik Plein Machasa, he means palga. Yachlik means to divide, to split it. That would mean literally in half. To split it would mean to the in half. To nu chelak Plein Machasa, to give a portion. So then, what's going to be the halacha? So the portion, we don't know if that means half. It's really, the question is on the second one. What's going to be by this? So the pshita, the first one is obvious. We know that yachlik, divide, means to split it in half. The question is the second one, when he says give a portion, how much is a portion? So, Amar Ravina Bar Kisi. Yeah, I'm not familiar with him. Ravina Bar Kisi says, Tashma, come and listen. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Let's say someone says that give to so-and-so a portion in the pit. Now, what is the pit? The pit is either water or wine or whatever. What did the Rashbam say? So some say it's referring to wine. He doesn't believe that. It's water. Like he wants to give so-and-so a portion of the water. So Simcha says, how much is the portion? Simcha says, "Ein pachas miravia." Not less than a quarter. No, why would it be a quarter? No, we know that Simcha says that whenever we have a doubt about what the halacha is, you always just split it in half, right? King Solomon. Just split it in half. Okay, so when he says to give a portion of the water, of the pit, now, how much could it be? What are my options? Well, it could be half, and it could be a mashu. It could be like the smallest amount, which would be maybe like a small cup. It could be half. It could be a small. Okay, so basically, what I need to do is I need to give him a half of a half, because I have to divide. Whenever there's a doubt, you divide it in half. Half of a half is a quarter. That's easy. So Simcha says it's not less than a quarter. He gives him a quarter. L'chavis, if he says a barrel of this bar, now a barrel.
I have a quick question on that water. This is a specific amount of water it's not a well, correct?
No, I think it is a well.
Well, if it's a well, the water would keep on coming.
Oh, no, a cistern.
Because then, that doesn't make sense.
What's that word you said? The
What?
W word. What's the word?
Cistern?
No, the W word.
So you just say water.
or water, you have to hear that.
This is Dr. Stein saying the word water. It's like a discussion. Okay.
What?
Okay, so l'chavas, if he says to a barrel, which it turns out that a barrel is half a well, half a cistern. So then I don't know how much I'm getting now a portion of the barrel, which maybe means a half a barrel. How much is a half? And the barrel itself is a half of the well. So how much is am I left with? In pachas mishminis, not going to be less than an eighth, because what I already have a quarter, right? Because a barrel is half the well. He says a portion of the barrel is a quarter. And I don't know, did he give him a portion the full quarter, or did he give him a portion the smallest portion? So what's going to be a half of a quarter? It's going to be an eighth. The kedera is I'm giving him from the well enough for a pot of food, enough water for a pot of food. So then in pachas miyud beis, now it says it's not going to be less than a 12th.
So they're just coming up with definitions about it. He says something. Like, what does it mean?
Yeah.
But it's always the same.
Does it
Half
say?
of,
Yeah. No, but 1 second. It doesn't go perfectly because a half of an eighth is not a 12. There
no,
is
but now he
No.
changes.
Half of a fourth is
and a half of an eighth is 16.
Yeah, so each time he changes it, depending on the need for what he's giving away.
So how did it turn? How much really is a kedera of a bar? How much? What is the ratio? I know a chavas is half a bar, and I know that's all I know. I know a chavas is half a bar. How much is a kedera? Is the pot to the pit?
The sixth.
Oh, it's a 6.
That's what I'm
Okay.
saying, he
Okay.
changes.
Yeah.
each
Okay. So
time.
very good. So the pot is going to be a 1/6 of the well. So half the pot. No, it's going to be a 12th.
12.
No, but
No,
I need a
he
half.
gives him always a half of a half,
No, so it can't be a 6. Has to be. It's a third.
a third.
It's a
And then
third.
he would
There's
keep
a
a
third.
minimum of
He would have given him a
6.
6, but he doesn't
And
know if
then
it's
he
a 6,
gets
so he
a
gets a 12.
12.
Okay. L'tzfiach, which is even smaller than this. So it's ein pachas mishisha. So this is a half of an eighth. So the tzfiach must mean. Yeah. So you have a pencil? 1/16. Yeah, half an eighth is a 16. So basically, the way this Gemara works. Perfect. Look at that.
That's from Mashiach.
So a chavis is half. A kedera is a third, and a tefiach was a quarter. So a half of a quarter would be an eighth. And I'm not sure if he gave him a full half, or nothing because of that. And the tefiach is amazing, huh? It's a quarter, a half, a third, and a quarter. Okay. Okay. Done Rabbanan, was done in a brisa. From now, what we're going to learn now till the end is basically that if someone adds in any expression,
Oh, I don't make mistakes. Oh, no, I'll take it. Oh, you can keep it,
what
keep
was
it, keep it.
Someone was saying about that they're so good at the crossword puzzle that they would do it with a pen.
Those are actually.
Okay. So from now on, what we're learning is that if someone uses extra words in the document or sale, then those extra words that must be including there must be some chiddush that he's adding to.
We call fine print.
Yeah.
Fine print. Right? The extra little words that.
Right. But it would be more, it's more than the fine print. It's that if in the actual document itself it elaborates more than necessary, then it's not just the elaboration that is telling me something even more than that. Yeah. So Tanar Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. Ben Levi Shemachar Sadal Yisrael. If there was a Levi that sold the field to a Jewish person, how did he own the field? He got a field somehow. I don't know. It wasn't inheritance because they don't have inheritance. But he has a field and he's selling it to a Jew. And he says to him, I would like, after I sell this field to you, I would still like to retain the Meiser. I want a Levi gets the Meiser, gets a tenth. Because I want to keep the tenth. So the halach is, we made a stipulation, Meiser Rishon Shalai, he keeps the tenth. And if he says, Liya Levanai, that I want to keep the tenth, and I also want to keep the tenth for my children. So then in Mace, if he passes away, he made a stipulation that he's retaining a certain portion of the field, a tenth of the produce. So that should go to his sons. And if he says that I want to retain the Meiser all the time that this field is in your hands, he's selling it to someone. He's telling the purchaser, as long as it's in your hands, I want to retain it. So then, even if the person sold it, say Reuven sells it to Shimon. Reuven is let's say Levi. Let's talk about Levi, because he's a Levi. Levi sells it to Shimon, and he says, I want him to retain the Meiser, because he's a Levi. So if he says to Shimon that as long as the field is in your hand, this is what I want. I want to retain the Meiser. So if Shimon then sells it to Reuven, and then he buys it back from Reuven, so what happens now is Ein Layolav Klum. He's already lost. Levi's already lost the Meiser. Why? Because when he sells it to Reuven, so he doesn't. He's already Levi's stipulation is already over. Then when he buys it back, Reuven sold it to him without the stipulation. So he doesn't have to give the Meiser to Levi. Now, he has to give Meiser, but he gets to choose who he wants to give the Meiser to. Give it to someone else.
Is the Meiser changing 10% of the 10%?
No. Meiser Rishon is what's given to the Levi. Meiser Sheni is the second 10%, which is brought to Yerushalayim. Now, no, not on that. It's a 10% of the whole. So what you're left with was 90. So now, yeah, it's not exactly 80, but it's 81 or something, because it's 9 out of the 90. And then there is, when you give to the Levi the Meiser, which was 10, a full 10. You're ignoring the Truma here, because the Truma was a 2%. But if you give to the Levi 10, then the Levi has to take one of those 10 and give it to the Kohen. That's a tenth of the 10. That's. So the Gemara has a question. It says,
I have a question. This initially sounds very unethical. Right?
Yeah.
Whoa.
So when he sold it, I'm assuming that his intention was never really to buy it back. Because if he was pulling a shtick, I don't think we would allow it.
right.
But we're saying that it's allowed even if it's a shtick. That's my question.
We can move on.
In other words, if he really wanted to get
Well, you don't
out
have to
of this
repeat it. I got it.
It's a
situation,
good point. Good point.
but what's he?
I have to guess.
This
Dr.
is a good
Steiner,
point.
Dr. Steiner is asking if Shimon sells it to Reuven and then buys it back from him just in order to get out of giving the Meiser, is that ethical? And it could be yes. That's the way they made it up, and that's he accepted that. That's could be. It's like, is it ethical to return things to the store after you bought it?
You have to go to return something else to the store after you bought the first thing, just because you need a new package. That's the
Oh,
question.
that's not nice.
That's-
Right.
That's the Bronx.
Says I with the Gemara has a question on this. Ain't other Makdavar Shlei Baloilam. How does he sell something that he doesn't have yet? He doesn't have the Meiser. The rule is that you can't sell something that's not in the world. He doesn't have the Meiser, and he's making this stipulation that I'm keeping the Meiser. How does he make a stipulation about something that doesn't exist? The Gemara explains, even the Amalei Almanas Shemaiser Rishon Shali, since he says on condition that the Meiser Rishon is mine, Shushai Lamakam Meiser, surely when he makes a stipulation that doesn't work, because he's adding in those words for the stipulation, it must mean that he's doing something extra to make it work. What is he doing extra to make it work? He is retaining a place of the land for himself, 1/10 of the land, and that land is going to produce the Meiser. So it's not something that's not in the world. It is in the world. It's the land it's his land that he's retaining.
So how did, in the other case, the guy sell the stuff? He couldn't have sold the lady's butt because he didn't own it. He only sold everything but the tent that belonged to the lady's futures.
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's my question also.
Two good questions.
You're on a roll, dude.
No, go on.
You're doing this for your
Like
grandfather.
Stein is asking
And yet,
that, so how does the guy sell it if he's retaining the actual land?
yeah, good question.
Rabbi, would it be because it
Yeah,
kosher or something?
yeah. The answer is that it's more like a sharecrop. He's telling him that you take 9 and I take 1.
This whole thing about like things, they do that with the first one.
What do we do with the first one? We redeem the first one, not before he's born.
If we have it like in mind,
By what?
the firstborn is a routine.
But you have to wait for him to be born.
No, but also like the firstborn of animals is a karma.
Okay. Yeah, but here it's saying that when they made the arrangement, that the person purchased the field, that he was getting something. The seller was getting something from the field that didn't exist. The way we're saying it is that no, he was only selling nine parts of the produce. Let's say if you say 9 parts of the produce. Okay. Amr Shlakish. Okay. Right. So the things, the things that in the future that he's going to purchase are going to have a lien on them.
And also like that if you do unrighteous.
We said that was a doubt. Right. Amr Shlakish. Shlakish says, from this we see that if someone sells a house to his friend, and he says to him, on condition that the upper floor is mine. In other words, he's selling him the house, but he's retaining the top floor. So do you tell the initial he keeps the top floor? Now the problem is
We got 10.
Gemara says, what is the significance of this halacha? We learned in the Mishnah already. The Mishnah says that if someone sells a house, he did not sell the roof.
Yes.
Mishnah back on 61 says, if the roof has 10 tvachim. And Yehuda says even without the 10 tvachim, if it has a doorway. So the question is, when the person made the stipulation that he's selling the house and not the roof and not the upper floor, so he doesn't sell the upper floor. So why do you even have to say that? So the my hilchos, what's the significance of that? The Rav Zvid says, the chiddush is that what he means to say is that he's able to put in beams that would be protruding into the courtyard. There was a whole discussion about the beams that are sticking into the courtyard, what he's allowed to do, and maybe he's going to be looking in. Was this the part that you taught? So say that the fact that he added in these extra words, which is totally not necessary, because the fact that he's retaining the upper floor, that happens even if he doesn't say anything. So it must mean that he's retaining more than that. He's retaining the right to have one of these beams protrude. It's more than a tefach. Okay. That's Rav Zvid. That if he wants to build on top, he's able to build. Now, what's the chiddush of that? The chiddush is that even when a person sells a house, he doesn't sell the roof, he doesn't sell the upper floor, he just sells the house, the lower floor. Now, but that's only because the upper part of the house is there. If the upper part of the house collapses, that doesn't mean that he's able to go back and build it. So when he's saying on condition that I keep the upper part, that what he means to say is that he's able to rebuild it as well. He's adding that those extra words are adding in another detail. It's called yiter lashon. The additional phrase is giving him some extra strength.
Question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You just said
Sorry, you got two. So stop while you're ahead.
Are you saying that, let's say the guy is retaining his penthouse. In the event the penthouse collapses, he can rebuild the penthouse?
Right.
Or are we saying he retains the roof, the air rights above the flat part of the roof, covering the penthouse, and therefore, if the entire house comes down,
I didn't mean that.
he can rebuild a 4-story house instead of 3-story that's there because he owned the roof rights, and therefore he can build another story that was never there to begin with. That was
Just got it. Just got it.
I think he always, actually, I'm not sure. Dr. Stein is asking if he's
now the peak is there.
if he's retaining the airspace.
Yeah.
And all the airspace from the lower floor to the sky, or does it mean that just one floor that he's able to rebuild if it collapses?
He sold the first floor.
It's just the first floor.
Only bought the first floor.
Right.
They could do 10 more on top.
Yeah, that's the problem now. If he buys the first floor, he only bought the first floor. When the upper floor collapses, officially, he doesn't now, the seller does not have anything in the property. What happened to the airspace that he had? He had the rights to build on top. He only has the upper floor while it's there.
But he has to, in that case, the owner from downstairs has to fix, or if not.
No, the bottom floor didn't collapse. The bottom floor is still there. It's just the upper floor.
So if it's just up, well, then he has to build it.
Who has to?
The owner of the second floor.
No, he's not allowed to rebuild. Yeah, when he sold the house, doesn't mean he sold the upper floor, but he only has the upper floor while it's there. If it collapses, he doesn't have it anymore.
Before we learned that he would have to fix, the bottom floor owner would have to fix, or not the second floor owner would come in and fix.
That's when the bottom floor collapses. Yeah. Yeah.
I think it was also the bottom floor to launch the first one, because of the second one.
Yeah, that was when it collapsed, and he has to go.
The second one, maybe collapsed.
I don't remember that. Okay. So, so what happened now is when he says that according to Rav Papa, when he says Almanas Shaditi Online Shli, he means not just while it's there, but it should be mine forever. That's the idea. According to Rav Zvid, that's why we were following. Rish Lakish is the one that's commenting on the Ben Levi that sold the property and he wants to keep the mice. He says, from that I understand. From that I'll understand that whenever there's extra words, it means that he's doing something extra to be able to make it work. So that's why Rish Lakish says, from this, I can understand that if someone sells a house and he's doing, and he says, on condition that the upper floor is mine, that he's adding in those extra words, it must be that he's doing something extra with those extra words. Now, according to Rav Zvid, what is the extra thing that he's getting from that he's able to use? He's able to put out those beams that are sticking into the courtyard, which normally he's not allowed to do. Okay, El Rav Papa, but according to Rav Papa, Maizai Semeres. He's saying, according to Rav Papa, this would be a regular stipulation that always works. If a person stipulates, it says, I'm only selling you the bottom floor, so you only sold on the bottom floor. I don't need a Zaysei Maris. This is a regular condition. The fact that he says, I'm selling you the bottom floor, but not the top floor. So that's a regular sale where he only sold the bottom floor. So what's the Zaysei Maris? From the extra expression I'm teaching me, see, according to Rish Lakish, the fact that he sold him the bottom floor and not the upper floor gives him some extra rights that he's able to do something in the courtyard, which you normally wouldn't be allowed to do. So that extra expression is giving him something that he wouldn't have had just from a regular stipulation. It's the extra expression. But here, it's just a regular stipulation. You say, I'm selling you the bottom one and not the top one. He's able to rebuild the top one if it collapses. Gemara says, Kasha, yeah, that's a good question. Okay, we're gonna have another question coming up. Same.
So the courtyard's not shared by both people. Like someone has a duplex, the property itself. You're saying there's machloket there?
No, when he sold him the house, he sold him the courtyard also. What it means to say is that even though he doesn't have the courtyard, he still has the rights of the upper floor to use in the courtyard. In other words, to use those beams that are going to be protruding into the courtyard. I'm Rav Dimi Nardoi. Rav Dimi from Nardoi says, "Hayman the Masman le Beisa lechave." Someone sells a house to his friend. Afagav the Kasav leYumka Baruma. Even though he says its depths and its height is being sold, Tzarech lemichtav le. He has to add in extra words. Nilach mitahaymara. Require it from the depth of the land ad rumraki until the heights of the heaven. You have to add in this extra expression from the depths of the land to the. And if he doesn't, my time. What does it gain by adding that in? If you don't add in the depth and the height, this is interesting. The person sells a house, the original owner, if he doesn't write the depths and the height, the original owner is able to go under the floor of the house and to dig tunnels.
Whoa, yeah. Finisher. That's why.
So when he adds in Kavruma, the depth and the height, it's blocking the digging from underneath the house.
Wow.
He's selling his own rights to be able to dig under the house. The seller is selling the rights because he's selling him the depth, which means all the way down, and the height. So do whatever he can on the top. I don't know. So when he adds in those words, okay, so now the seller can't go under the house and dig. So ahani yom kavaruma lemikni yom kavaruma. So when he adds in the words, the depths and the height, that's going to acquire the depths and the height. So what are the bahani time aram and the and it says from the depths of the earth until the height of the heavens, that extra expression, what is that helping? To acquire from the rest of the property a pit that's a water well and a cistern and tunnels that are in the property.
Excuse me, when you go through those tours of the tunnels by the hotel,
Yeah,
and then you see like, bus and this whole tunnel network that's under the houses that are
Right.
there. So we're saying that historically, that those houses, when they were bought, at one point they were bought by Jews, I guess. Whatever, maybe not. You should fix that phone. It always goes off, especially when I talk on the cell phone.
Those weren't tunnels back in the day, by the way.
Well, they were
They just
systems,
built on top.
they were waterway. I'm saying, was that never always like owned by eminent domain, or were they owned by,
Oh
and
my
they were
God.
personal trust of the house? I mean, who did that belong to? And who does owns it now?
Feel free to take up that question.
Naftali, Dr. Stein is asking if you own a house in Israel,
In Yerushalayim
in
specifically.
Yerushalayim, and they
Old
find
Yerushalayim.
underneath you're on a archaeological site. Do you own the layers underneath them?
The ownership of these things in these old cities, like either the old city or Nakla Od or Meir Shorim, get very tricky and very, very, very fuzzy. My wife and I were once invited into a house in the Arab quarter of the old city. That organization that buys Arab houses and sells them to Jews.
That's Teretz Kohanim or something.
Yeah, Teres Kohanim. This house was, she said it was built during the Tekufat Bayit Rishon. And you mamish felt like you were in a cave in this house. I mean, the ceiling was about an inch above my head. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you this story is that she decided she had to remodel her bathroom. You can imagine what it looked like. And they accidentally poked through the floor and discovered a large pool of clean, clear water, a cistern, under her house.
Wow.
And so
Wow, that's a mikveh.
instead of covering it up, she made the floor of her bathroom glass. So you could see down to the water. And she said, it wasn't clear who owned it because it hadn't been specified in her deed.
Wow.
This was a lady who, to go to the grocery store, had to call the army in advance. And they would send 2 people to take her to the grocery store because she was in the Arab quarter.
Wow.
Naftali, property owner in Nachalot, just one second.
What's that?
Your
Yes, he's
property owner
asking
in Nachalot?
if you own land in Nachlot.
I do.
He does.
Okay.
Smart guy.
And the person who lives next to me, there's a dispute about who owns the space under his house because it was previously used as a nighttime barn for sheep and goats.
Whoa.
And there's a dispute about who owns that, and it's interesting. You don't want to do property law in Israel.
You're 3 in a row, baby.
Field trip. Okay, that's it. Got my hoods up a bit.
Stop it, man.
So the Gemara says, what is he gaining by adding in the words from the depths of the earth till the height of the heaven? After that, he's gaining the pits and the cistern and also the tunnels. The Gemara asks, the Gemara suggests, the lame Messiah, maybe we can bring a proof to Rav Dini. We can bring a proof from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says, if someone sells a house, he did not sell the well and the cistern. Even though he wrote in the document that he's selling the depths and the height. It must mean that the depths and the height is only the first part, right? It's only the directly under the house that is to be able to dig. But the well and the cistern, that's not included.
So in other words, he gets the right to dig, but if there's already a structure under the house, he isn't buying that if he just says varuma. That's the way I understand this.
1 second. If we're talking about that the seller, if he doesn't say anything, He doesn't say anything. The seller sells the house. He doesn't say Yom Kavaruma. So we would assume that the seller still has the rights to dig under the house.
Right,
And
but if he says Kavaruma,
if there's Yom Kavaruma, then the purchaser can dig under the house. But if there was already a well
right,
there, then even if he says Yom Kavaruma, that belongs to the original.
unless
because
he says that longer phrase.
Unless he says the longer phrase. So we see clearly that even though he said Kavruma, he didn't sell the bar and the dus. So the Gemara explains, if we would say that naturally, when someone sells a house, he automatically sells the depth in the height, even without specifying. So then, Lahaniyam Kavruma, then when he specifies the depths in the height, that should be adding in, and it should be acquiring Miknei Barvados and Mechilas. Obviously, from the fact that he does not acquire the well and the cistern, it must mean exactly the way Rav Dimi said it. So now the Bach adds in the words Leitricha. No, that's not the case. We're talking about the Leikosavle, where he didn't actually say Kavruma. The case in the Mishnah is where he didn't write Kavruma. He didn't write the depths in the height, and that's why he didn't sell it. If he would have said Kavruma, then he would have the depths in the height, then he would have sold the barn, the well in the cistern. Where it says, what? How could you say that? That's clearly not what the Mishnah said. The Mishnah said that he did write Kavruma. Not that he didn't write, he did write Kavruma, and still he didn't sell it. We're trying to get rid of the proof to Rav Dimi by saying that the Mishnah is talking about a case where he didn't say that he's selling Kavruma. That's why he didn't sell it. But the Mishnah clearly says where he did say it. Where it says Achikamer, no. What the Mishnah means to say, Afal pi shalei kasav lai, even though he didn't write Kavruma, Misha kasav dami, it's as if he wrote it Lemikni Kavruma, just for the Kavruma. So if you don't write Kavruma, then what the Mishnah would mean is that you're still not allowed to, the purchaser, if you don't write Kavruma, it's as if you wrote Kavruma, and the purchaser is able to dig under the house. However, to acquire the wells that are already there, then you would have to write extra. Then you would have to write Kavruma. You like kasav like honey. And if he didn't write it, then he doesn't acquire the bar and the dus. Okay, what we're learning now is that not like Rav Dimi. According to Rav Dimi, even if you say Kavruma, you don't acquire the purchaser doesn't acquire the well. According to the way the Gemara is learning now, that the Mishnah, based on the Mishnah, that maybe if you would have said Kavruma at the depths and the height, then you would have acquired the well. Okay, Tashema, come and listen. Someone sells a house, the Mishnah says that he doesn't acquire the roof. The roof has a wall that's 10 tefachim high. If we would say that even without saying kavruma, you automatically acquire the kavruma, right? It would be naturally. So so why do we need the wall to be 10 tefachim? Why do we need the wall to be 10 tefachim? He didn't sell it anyway. Maybe it's the opposite. Just 1 second. No, it's the opposite. Why, if the wall is sold 10 tefachim, is it not sold? If he says, if he doesn't say kavruma, it's as if he said kavruma, it should be as if it is sold. What's the difference if there's a wall there or not? If naturally, without that extra wording, you still have that, it's as if that wording was said. So then why, if there's a wall that's 10 tefachim, is the roof not sold? It's as if the wording was said, kavruma. And ruma means the heights. They should have been sold the roof. The Gemara answers, Keva and the Gavaya Asar Tvachim, since the wall around the roof is 10 Tvachim high, chashiv, it's important, and it's considered a separate entity, and that's why it's not sold. So Gemara thought originally that the 10 tvachim shouldn't make a difference, should be automatically sold. The Gemara answers that no, that because it's significant, because it's becomes a separate area, because it has a wall around it, so it's not sold. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, Tashima, come and listen. Dam Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish said, Zaysemeres, from what the Brisa taught us about the Ben Levi, about the Levi that sells the land for the Maisa and he wants to keep the Maisa. Based on that, Reish Lakish says that if someone sells a house to his friend Vamalai and he says to him, on condition that I retain the upper floor, Allah is due to the that the upper floor is his. Rinan, and the Gemara says on that, what's the significance of that? You always sell you always keep the upper floor because the Mishnah says that if someone sells a house, he didn't sell the roof. So Rav Zud says the significance is that he's able to use the ceiling or the floorboard, the beams that are sticking out into the courtyard. He's able to use those beams. If he wants to have the beam stick out, he's able to do that.
But he also can build on it, can't he? I thought that was the big deal.
Papa says Papa says that if he wants to build on it, which means that if it collapses, he can rebuild it. Isal Kadaita Chanifa would say that naturally you don't acquire the upper floor, right? Naturally, he doesn't have the roof. So Lamali al Manas. So why does he have to say on condition that I keep it? He doesn't have to add that in. Who is this a question on? This sounds like it's a question on Rav Papa. If the purchaser doesn't acquire it naturally, it always belongs to the seller. And now when the seller says that I want to keep it, so we say that it's his. So it was always his. The Gemara says, Ahanile, it's coming to help one extra point, that Ahanile al-Manas helps the Nafal Hadar Banile, that if it collapses, the seller is able to rebuild it, which that he wouldn't have had if he just would have, if he would have left that out. Al-Manas. If he would have left out the Al-Manas on condition that I retained the upper floor, he wouldn't have been able to build it when it collapsed, which is the way we explained the Gemara before as well. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Oh, we're just getting started.
Wow.
Just rolling.